The WGA, the Writers Guild of America, is already striking, and it looks to be that the Screen Actors Guild, or SAG-AFTRA, is also striking. And for a lot of people out there, there's some confusion. What happens to movies and TV when SAG goes on strike with the WGA? Well, I'm here to answer that for you. So as somebody who works in the entertainment industry, I've worked on films, I've worked on feature films, I've done all of that. I cover films for my current job at that hashtag show. I'm an entertainment journalist. So I've looked deeper into this kind of thing where what actually happens when a strike happens with both of these pillars of the movie making process, where you've got the actors, the writers both on strike. The directors signed a terrible deal, but they're not going to be on strike. Well, let's start with Comic-Con and all of that. But first, you got to go into what is making these strikes happen. So with SAG-AFTRA, or the Writers Guild, they're both going on strike because of two really big things. They're going on strike because of streaming and the residuals from streaming, or the non-existent residuals from streaming, and AI. AI is a bit easier to understand. They're trying to replace them with artificial intelligence. I don't want to wade into that because it's something that I don't know as much about. I've used ChatGPT and stuff like that, but I don't know all this other stuff where they're going through with... Basically, they're trying to get free work out of these things to create movie-making processes that don't involve human elements as much. That's sort of the very, very layman's term version of it. With the residuals and stuff like that, I do know about that. And so if you're a writer, you on a TV show or a movie, you get residuals every time it re-airs, or somebody buys a Blu-ray or whatever of it, and you get a check in the mail every month, or bi-monthly, or yearly, or whatever. And same thing with actors. And so you sign on and you get this sort of pay scale for it. Bigger actors get more residuals, smaller actors get less residuals, stuff like that. However, with streaming, because these companies are all evil and they don't want to give anybody any money for their work at all besides the bare minimum that they can, streaming shows don't allow for residuals. That is why HBO Max turned into Max. HBO Max is a cable company. Max is a streaming company. Netflix doesn't put their movies out on Blu-ray or DVD very often, or rarely ever now, because of this problem. Now, if both of these pillars of the movie-making process renegotiate and get better deals, get more pay, make it so that they won't replace them with Skynet, get residuals on these things, you might start seeing more Blu-ray releases and stuff like that for Netflix movies and for stuff like and TV shows and all of that. There was a recent report out there that Blu-ray collecting or DVD sales are spiking because of bootleg sales. And that's because these companies aren't putting these shows and movies out. And then they're also, to avoid paying residuals and avoid paying creators, they're just deleting them for tax purposes. They're going, this movie Crater that just came out on Disney Plus a couple of months ago, it was a fine movie. It wasn't amazing, but it was fine. Within weeks, it was taken off of Disney Plus. And so they're putting it up this guise of, oh, well, we're going to shop it to these other places where other streamers, whatever. That's bullcrap. They just don't want to pay people what they're worth. But what that leads to is there will be no movies without SAG actors. There will be no movies without writers. So anything that's in the chute that's already being made, that stops. Deadpool 3 is currently filming. They're trying to probably get this done filming before the Screen Actors Guild strike. Anything that can promote a movie. That's why all these studios are getting out and going, okay, we need to do promotion for Barbie, for Oppenheimer, for Mission Impossible, because we need to get it out of the way, because otherwise we won't have the stars to promote the movies. Disney, with their Haunted Mansion premiere that's coming up on July 15th, if there is a Screen Actors Guild strike, which I believe that there will be one, they can't have any of the stars there. It's going to be a fan event instead. It's not going to be a premiere. It's going to be a fan event. Comic-Con is the big one. That's coming up. San Diego Comic-Con 2023 is coming up soon. You know what's going to happen at Comic-Con? The Screen Actors Guild is already telling the actors, if you can, don't go to Comic-Con at all. And you can't promote anything that's a movie or a TV show. You can't talk about anything that's a movie or a TV show. And you can't be there to promote anything from a studio or whatever. That is what's at stake with this strike, in addition to the things that the writers and the actors actually want out of their contracts, where they want these better pay, better stuff, don't replace us with Skynet. So that's what's at stake. It's going to be, they've got a lot of stuff in the can that's made, maybe, possibly, that they can sort of dole out to cover this gap. But if you look back to the other writer's strike from, Lost got almost destroyed, Heroes got destroyed, because producers decided, hey, we don't need writers, we'll just write it ourselves. You might see some of that. You might see some of that. You might see people that aren't in the Screen Actors Guild trying to do movies, maybe, possibly, but that leads down the slope of, if we see you doing a movie while we're on strike, you will not be allowed in SAG after that. So there's a cost. If you want to star in a movie, you can go star in a movie, but you're not going to be in the Screen Actors Guild. That's all that's at stake here, and if it really depends on if the studios want to give a fair deal or not to these two groups. And if they don't, they're going to keep going, because they're going to bleed them dry. They're going to run out of content eventually. There's not going to be enough reality TV to put up on Max, Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus. They're going to run out of stuff. They've got stuff basically up until the end of the year, possibly some stuff later in, but they're going to run out eventually. And if you have these shows that are coming out, it's really hard to sort of promote them without the stars of the show. Imagine for Ahsoka, they're not going to be able to have Rosario Dawson do promotion for that show. It's going to be really hard to get people invested without having Lars Mikkelsen show up and talk about why he's playing Thrawn or how he's playing Thrawn. It's going to be impossible for them to do this, so that's why they're going on strike, because they know they have leverage currently, and that leverage remains. So if you're confused about why the Screen Actors Guild or the Writers Guild went on strike, or what it means for your favorite shows and movies, it means that everything goes on pause. We are pausing everything. Everything is paused. Movies that are in production, stop. Movies that are in post-production keep going, but they go without promotion. Comic-Con is going to be about comics. It does mean that the Screen Actors Guild is going on strike, most likely, and it means, and if you're watching this after they've gone on strike, but the Writers Guild of America is also on strike, fighting for better wages, better everything. And for people out there in other industries, other creative industries, these two are really fighting for artists and creatives as a whole. They're fighting to get a better deal, because if they get a good deal, it sets a precedent all the way down. Then other groups go, they got a pretty sick deal, we want that deal. That's the baseline now. So that works for everybody. That works for all creatives, all artists. So for people out there that are getting mad or upset or disappointed or whatever that Deadpool 3 might be pausing filming or something like that, don't get mad at the actors or the writers. It's not their fault. Get mad at the studios. It's the studio's fault. It's their fault for being greedy. It's their fault for not wanting residuals. If you're mad that Stranger Things hasn't had a Blu-ray release for season 3 or 4, it's Netflix's fault. If you're mad that Hellraiser and Prey haven't been released on Blu-ray or in the US, and I think Hellraiser got a DVD release in Europe, it's Hulu's fault. It's Disney's fault. It's the executive's fault for being greedy and not wanting to spread around the wealth. And the amount of money that they're asking for is a drop in the bucket compared to what these studios are making. So if you haven't picked up on all of this stuff, that's a bit of a guide to go through what's going to happen if and when the Screen Actors Guild goes on strike. So for more videos like this, or more Blu-ray collecting tips or movie reviews or whatever, check out this, because it'll really help you out and learn more about movies. And that's, what we all want.